My name is Thaddeus, and I'm a software engineer and an AI educator. You can check me on Instagram or as Thaddeus underscore, or on Twitter as global underscore tech girl. You can also check me on my website. All right, what you learned today, we're going to be looking at what x402 is. If you've heard about x402, can you just wave your hands? You've heard x402. I understand that it's a pretty new stuff, and yeah. So we're going to be learning what X402 is and how you can monetize your API with X402. Cool. Thank you. What if you could monetize your API and you could charge like a few cents on any API call, right? You could charge people to access your API. For instance, you run a blog, right? And you write articles and you want people to pay for those articles, or you want to make certain um, of those articles paid for. Now, when you want to do this with payment processors like Stripe or PayPal, you know how difficult this is. Do we agree? For instance, you want to charge $0.5 on an article and you want to use PayPal or Stripe, that would be very difficult for several reasons. One, transaction fees, right? Imagine you want to charge $0.5 and people have to pay transaction fee of, say, $1. Who would do that? Would anybody pay for that? I highly doubt that, right? Another reason why you might not want to use payment processors like Stripe and PayPal is the complex setup needed. As a developer, you know how setting up Stripe or PayPal is not very much of a straightforward task, right? And imagine you want to do it for just a few cents, almost not worth it. And then lastly, before you can make payments with Stripe or PayPal, right, you have to fill a form of your names, your detail basically. Imagine you tell users to fill a form to charge them $0.5 for articles. Now that is not the most seamless thing to do, right? I don't think anybody is going to do that. Now that's where X402 comes in. X402 is a new payment standard that lets you charge for API access through standard HTTP response, right? The same way we have several other kinds of HTTP response like 400, 500, 404. Which other ones? 200, okay. Which other one? 500, which other one? Yeah? And several other ones, right? That's the same way we have X402. And the same way these status code tells you the results of a request, of your API request, that is literally basically what the X402 protocol is about. And the good thing about X402 protocol, the best part of it is that you don't need credit cards. You don't need to sign up. You don't need subscriptions. Just click and pay. And another thing is it uses stable coins, which brings us to the blockchain, right? And the essence of the stable coin is near zero fees. Like you're almost not going to pay transaction. You're not almost not going to pay transaction fee, and it's instant. Cool, cool. Now, obviously, this is just a 40-minute workshop. We're not going to have like a deep dive into X402 entirety, and I'm just going to be like pointing out some key things you should note before the workshop itself. Now, the core components of X402, I listed out the three most important ones, which is the sellers, the buyers, and the facilitators. Now, the sellers are like, based on this workshop we're going to be doing, you're going to be the seller because you're the one selling, or you want people to pay for your product, you want people to pay for your API, to access your API. So the sellers are people or companies who want to monetize their APIs or content. Very simple, straightforward. Then the next core components of X402 are the buyers. Same, like literally those that are going to pay to access your product or your content. That's developers and AI agents seeking to access paid services without accounts or manual payment flows. And then we have the facilitators. Now, this is a service that verifies and settles payments on behalf of buyers and sellers. So they are like the middlemen, right? They are the ones that will verify that payment, that will verify the payment between the sellers and the buyers. Are we still following? Cool, thank you. Now, how does it work? This chart literally shows how the X402 protocol works. Now, it starts with you calling your API, right? Okay, or let's say it starts with the user wanting to access your product, right? And then they get an error that tells them they have to make payments. I don't know how clear this is. If I should zoom it a bit further. Can we see it? Okay, cool. Now, if you check this chart, I'm just going to brush like through it quickly so we move on fast. And they get that error. They in the response, they see the instructions of how to pay, what address to pay to, how much they have to pay. And then the client, which is you, right? You give them a new what's it called info that would contain the header. Now when they retry that process, they would now be prompted to pay, and then it then sends it to the facilitator that verifies the payments. Now all of these things are handled entirely by the X402 protocols, because we're going to be installing dependencies and packages that are just going to make all of these things work, so you don't have to do any of these things manually yourself. Okay, cool. Now, to participate in this workshop, you actually need to have some things ready. You first of all need to install MetaMask. You have MetaMask, those are the laptops. Okay, cool. You first install MetaMask wallet, the Chrome extension, and you also need to get some testnet tokens, because we're going to be paying, like I said we're going to be building a product that is, we're going to charge people to access um a prompt. That's what we're building, right? I think I can show us that. So you need MetaMask, and you need to add the base Sepolia network to your MetaMask. Okay, now to the building part. We're supposed to scan this and you get access to all the code we're going to be writing. I wanted it to be like pretty much easy to follow along if you have the code. Can we scan this? Okay. You'll be directed to GitHub, where you would see the repo for that. Now, the first thing, let me just go through the processes. Now, the first thing is you set up your project and you run, like you set up a normal Next.js application, and then you install the X402 packages. We have 3 packages which you're going to be installing. If you clone the repo, you would see that all the codes are there, right? And the 3 dependencies you would be installing is the x402 fetch, the x402 next, and VM. Now, what the next does is it's a middleware package for Next.js, and it intercepts API requests and verifies payments. So it's the x402 next, that's the middleware package for Next.js itself, and that's what intercepts the APIs and would verify the payments for you. Then we have the X402 fetch, and what that does is it's basically a client library, and it automatically handles the payment as soon as it sees the X402 status code. And then we have VM, which we would install as well. That is a library for blockchains, and basically when you're building any blockchain product, you need to install VM. And what it does is it handles everything that has to do with transactions or connecting your wallet, pretty much. Then the next thing we want to do, that's the step 1 is installing all of those dependencies, and the step 2 is creating the API route. I mean, if we're going to be monetizing our API, it's only right for us to move to creating the API routes. I think I can show that here. Um, Let me just show what we would build out, because I built it out before now. So Yet this is basically just the simple UI, right? Now, this is a prompt store. This is a prompt store. Like this is what we're supposed to build out. If you check the um, repo that you scanned, you can also see the code there. Now, this allows you to access a prompt. Now, if we didn't add the x402 payment processes, anyone would be able to access this. But because we added the middleware, I'm going to be showing us that in a bit. Let me just click on this. Now you would see that clicking on that shows us the MetaMask UI to make payments. So confirm. Now by just clicking on that, we paid about $0.05 and we got access to the prompt. If the middleware was not there, you would get an error. Let me start from the processes. Okay, I think I can explain each code. Oh, it's tiny. Can we see it? Please, if you can't see something or hear something, I would appreciate you call my attention, please. Okay, cool. Okay, let me go back to the slides. Okay, creating the API route. Cool. Now, to create the API route, you inside of your app folder, which I did here, you create another folder called the premium, which is where you're going to be putting what you want to monetize. So we create the API folder inside of our app folder, and you create your premium. I called my premium because that's where I want to put what I want to monetize, which is my prompt. Okay, which is what shows up here. You would notice we have the app, the API, and then the routes. Now, inside of the routes, let me open that up. We just import next request, and then we put in the prompt of what we want to monetize. That's the prompt we want to monetize, just a single prompt. And then we pretty much expect to return the prompt as a JSON response, right? So then when we do that and we check the API slash premium, we should just expect to see the prompt there. Now, after doing all of that, after going through the first step and the second step, anyone will be able to access your prompts, right? And we want to monetize it. The essence of this is to use X402 so no one would be able to access it without paying. By now, you should already have like your MetaMask installed and all, right? Like I said here, that right now the endpoint is completely free and accessible to anyone. And so the next step is supposed to add the middleware to protect it behind a paywall. To add a paywall, X402 has already given us like much of the code that you need, right? So you would import the payments middleware from X402 next first. You can see all of this in the repo that I scanned with the QR code I pasted the other time. And we have your seller's wallet. This is also coming from X402. You just replace with your wallet address, which I did here, right? You would notice I have the seller's wallet, which is my own wallet address. And then we have the facilitator objective. Like I was explaining the core component, I said the facilitators is the service that verifies the payments, correct? Yeah. So you also want to add that to the middleware. All of this will be given to you as soon as you just set up the X402, install the X402 package. And we also have some configuration here, like the middleware, right? So when we call the middleware, you can see that we expect it to, we show the price, right? We show the price, we show the network. We're using base Sepolia, and the description. The description is access to premium content or whatever you want to, um, you want people to pay for, want people to pay to access. And they will also have the facilitator objective, which is the configuration for the facilitator service. And putting this here is actually optional, but you want to do it. And we have some services. One of the ones that I've used is, that I often use, is Pay AI, right? And next, you just decide the path of where you want to call the API, and then we run it. And just after you put in the middleware, this is just what runs. The middleware is the code you need. You see, it's just few lines of code that handles all that payments. Just few lines of code. And after adding the middleware code, you just build out your front-end interface. I built a very simple one that I showed the other time, which is this. I also have the code in the repo. To find it, I created a docs.md inside of the repo if you want to access that. So that's, then you build out your front end. You could build out, if it's a blog you want to monetize, it could be a blog, or, just anything at all you want to monetize. Now, the X402 gives you a code for the page that's, for the payment processes, right? Like I said, as soon as you install the packages, you get some code, correct, from X402. And the next thing you will be doing is to handle the payment logic. We also have the piece of code for that. We're not going to write any code, so we just move on. And then to test it, just run your npm run dev. Okay, in our console now, when I click on unlock, you see here it shows the network, which is the base Sepolia. It's not, can you see it? Cool. When I try to make the payment by just clicking on that, you see we're charging just about $1 thereabouts. We're charging just about $1 for this. You could charge as less as 0.05. Any amount really. It doesn't matter. Like we said at the beginning, it's almost impossible to do this with PayPal or Stripe for cents. So we verify that, and after we pay about $1 thereabouts. That's pretty much it. Do we have questions?
Is there like a preview of how the whatever I want to sell looks like, just to have a quick overview of what they want to buy before they make the payments?
You can decide to put that out on your in your development process. You can decide to write that out. Maybe, but basically they can't see it except they pay for it. So you're locking it. That's it. All right. I said I was going to, let me just show this lastly, and yeah, so you can just scan this. I'm going to update it with like more documentations, with the official documentations for X402. So I'll just add the link there towards the end. All right. Thank you all so much.